Welcome back, Algebra 1 students. Today we're going to review something that we learned before spring break. It is solving quadratics by taking the square root. So let's just have a little thought back. If I asked you what the square root of 9 is, I think a lot of you would tell me it's 3. But when we learned about square root, we needed something times itself. So 3 times 3. This made one pair of 3's, and so 3 came out as my answer. But another way to think about this is that something times itself. Well, a -3 times a -3, this right here, a negative times a negative is going to equal a +9 as well. So not only is the square root of 9 3, it's also -3. What we say is plus and minus. So when you square root a number, you have to take care of the plus and minus. So let's try another one. Square root of 4. It's not just 2. It's plus and minus 2. So we're going to keep that plus and minus in our minds, and we're going to solve the problems or some of the problems that are on your notes page that you found on Canvas. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 says that we need to solve x squared equals 25. To undo this square right here, this 2 power, we have to take a square root and a square root. So that means I'm going to have x equals, and the square root of 25 is not just 5, it's plus or minus 5. That's your answer, number 1. Let's try number 2. Number 2 is the same idea. This time I have x squared equals 169. To undo that square, I'm going to square root and square root. So x is going to equal not just positive, but plus and minus. The square root of 169 is 13. Let's try number 3. Number 3 is a little bit different. X squared minus 36 equals 0. This time, I have this 36, and I need to move it over to the other side because I got to get the x squared by itself. Get x squared alone. So to do that, I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to undo a minus 36, you're going to add 36, and if you do it on one side, you have to do it to the other. These cancel out, so you get x squared equals 0 plus 36 is 36. Then we can do our square root like we were doing before. So x equals, that's right guys, plus and minus 6. Let's try number 4. X squared minus 196 equals 0. We have to make the x squared by itself. So draw your line. We're going to add 196 and add 196. These cancel out. X squared is going to equal 196. And then to undo the square, you're going to square root and square root. And you can use your calculator. The square root of 196 is 14, and then we're going to put our plus and minus in the front. You guys got this. Let's try number 5. Number 5 is a little bit different. 4x squared equals 36. The rule's not changing. I need to get x squared alone. But this time I have this 4 in front of my x squared, and they are multiplying. So to unmultiply, we have to divide. So I'm going to divide by 4 and divide by 4, because if you do it on one side, you have to do it on the other side. These 4's cancel out. So you get x squared equals 36 divided by 4 is 9. Then to undo the square, you're going to square root. X is going to equal plus and minus 3. Ooh, number 6 looks tricky. Let's try that one. So let's see. I have -3x squared equals 36. Nope, sorry. equals 300. I read the wrong problem. So I have to get my x squared alone. So I'm going to divide by a -3 and divide by a -3. So these -3's cancel out. We have x squared equals 300 divided by a -3. A positive divided by a negative is going to be a -100. To undo my square, I'm going to square root and square root. Be so careful, so careful. This is a big no-no. We have not learned how to square root negative numbers. If you remember back when we were doing the discriminant, if it was negative, there was no answers or no solutions. If it was 0, there was one answer. And if it was positive, there was 2 answers. This is a negative. We don't square root negatives. So we have no solutions. And just to explain that a little bit more, if I take my -100 over here, when you're square rooting a number, you need something times itself, an x times an x. Well, a positive x times a positive x makes a positive 100. I have a -100. And even if I tried a negative times a negative is going to equal a positive. So I can't make a negative number when I multiply it by itself because either it's a positive and a positive or a negative and a negative. Neither one's going to result in a -100 up here. Okay, 2 more. Number 7. So number 7 and 8 are going to combine 2 steps. I have to get the x squared alone. So the first thing I have to do is add the 4 over on both sides. So I now have 25x squared equals 0 plus 4 is 4. Now who is hanging out with my x squared? A 25, that's right. And to undo what they're doing, because they're multiplying, we need to divide. So divide by 25 and divide by 25. So I get x squared equals 4 over 25. And then to undo that square, I'm going to square root and square root. So I have x equals, I'm going to have a plus and minus answer, and we're going to square root the whole fraction, or the top and the bottom separately. So let me make this smaller for a second. And so I'm going to have x equals plus or minus, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 25 is 5. So my answer is plus or minus 5 over 2, or 2/5. Sorry, 2 over 5, or 2/5. One more problem. Number 8. Number 8 says I have 9x squared minus 36 equals 0. So I'm going to draw my line, so I need to get my x squared by itself. What would I do first? If you said add 36 to both sides, you're correct. Good job. So these 36 are going to cancel out. So I have my 9x squared equals 0 plus 36 is 36. Now what do I need to do to get my my x squared by itself? Divide by 9. So these 9's cancel out. I get x squared equals 36 divided by 9 is 4. To undo my square, I'm going to square root and square root. So x is going to equal plus or minus, the square root of 4 is 2. So there are all of our answers. This paper will be super useful to you. You have a quiz tomorrow over it, so I recommend you put this paper you printed or the line paper you're writing on somewhere so that you have it, because you can use it on your quiz tomorrow.